Hi, Robbie here. It's another Thursday morning, and this morning I'm thinking about comics. My favorite comic uh, is probably Calvin and Hobbes. Have you ever seen Calvin and Hobbes in the comic pages of a newspaper? Well, I wish TV news had comic pages the way newspapers have comic pages, or at least used to. Um, it gives people a fighting chance to have a reasonably pleasant day rather than starting off with a barrage of grim news and terrible things that are going on beyond our control. Well, comic pages are one of my favorite things. And Calvin and Hobbes is no longer running these days, but for several years I used to really enjoy laughing out loud at some of the jokes that Calvin and Hobbes used to provide. One of my favorite episodes of Calvin and Hobbes was a two-panel little picture of the boy standing there at the bus stop with his imaginary pet tiger, talking to himself and saying, well, here I am waiting for the bus, and then I'll go to school, and I'll be in school for 14 years, and then it'll be graduate school, and then get a job, and I'll work till I die. And what's it all about? Why can't I be a kid for only 5 years? What kind of world is this anyway? Well, that's that about summed up a lot of the feelings that I have once in a while, and I still remember the little story. Calvin and Hobbes is an interesting comic strip because it portrays the world through the eyes and imagination of a 5-year-old boy. And one of the things that he always does is play with his imaginary friend, which a lot of us used to do when we were tiny kids. And his imaginary friend is a character that he just imagines, makes up by himself. And I find it really interesting to watch this little kid playing with his imaginary friend, and I'm thinking how similar to all the things that we think we know, but are little stories that we make up. We have imaginary explanations for almost everything in the world to explain our place in this often very confusing and bewildering world that we're living in, and trying to make a living, trying to get by, trying to be a good neighbor, a good friend, and everything is so confusing, and we just have to make up little stories to explain it to ourselves so we can be comfortable with the uncertainty of everything. Well, many of the stories that we make up are pretty complicated, pretty complex, and often involve things that we assume but can never be proven. And that's where, when I think about these stories that can never be proven, I think about Occam's razor, which is a common device of an old saying that often the simplest explanation is the best one. And so I'm wondering, I wondered this morning, who is this guy Occam, whose name is attached to this idea? And it turns out that I searched a little bit, and my friend friend Google provided all the artificial information I needed. Uh, there was a monk in the 14th century in England, a monk named William, lived in a town called Occam, and William of Ockham was a monk who apparently spent a lot of his time imagining complicated theoretical, theological problems, and he tried to answer them. And he heard from previous people like Aristotle, centuries before, that the simplest explanation is often the best. And he popularized that notion frequently in things that he wrote. And so his name got attached to the idea. It's a powerful idea, sometimes very helpful, sometimes a source of abuse and misinformation when we oversimplify things as we try to explain them. Well, I'm thinking about Occam's razor this morning, and I'm thinking about Calvin and Hobbes and how I got to Occam from him, and that's what I'll be thinking about for the rest of the day. That's it for now, and I'll talk with you next Thursday.